How Princess Leonor is quietly reinventing her royal image. What if Princess Leonor's biggest transformation isn't happening in a palace, at a ceremony, or in front of the cameras, but in the tiny details most people barely notice? Because lately, something feels different. The way she carries herself, the way she speaks, the way she appears in public. It's subtle enough to miss but powerful enough to change how an entire generation sees Spain's future queen. And the most interesting question is this: is Leonor simply growing up, or is she deliberately building a completely new royal image? For years, Princess Leonor was presented to the world as the young heir, the daughter of King Felipe VI and Queen Letizia, carefully introduced to royal responsibilities one step at a time. But that image is changing, and it isn't happening overnight. Leonor appears increasingly comfortable stepping beyond the traditional picture of a princess. Her military training has added a new dimension to her public identity. Instead of being seen only at formal ceremonies, she has been associated with discipline, responsibility, and preparation for one of the most demanding roles in Europe. And that matters, because when Spain eventually looks to its next monarch, Leonor won't simply inherit a crown, she will inherit expectations. Millions of people will be watching how she leads, how she communicates, and how she responds when the spotlight becomes uncomfortable. That may explain why her public image increasingly feels less like that of a sheltered young royal and more like someone being prepared for real responsibility. But there's another change that is even more fascinating: her confidence. Watch carefully during her public appearances. There are moments when she seems more composed, more assured, and less dependent on the presence of her parents. That doesn't mean she has abandoned the traditional royal style. Instead, she seems to be developing something more personal, a balance between tradition and modernity. And perhaps that is exactly what the Spanish monarchy needs from its future queen. Leonor belongs to a generation that has grown up surrounded by social media, instant opinions, and constant scrutiny. She cannot simply rely on ceremony. She has to connect. She has to appear authentic. And she has to convince people that the person behind the title is capable of carrying the institution forward. That is where her evolving image becomes so interesting. She isn't trying to become a celebrity. She isn't constantly chasing attention. In fact, the opposite may be part of the strategy. The less she appears to force the spotlight, the more people seem curious about her. And curiosity can be powerful, because suddenly, every appearance becomes something people want to analyze. A speech, a uniform, a gesture, a smile, even the way she stands beside other members of the royal family. None of these details alone proves that Leonor is following some secret master plan, but together, they reveal something important: she is becoming her own public figure. And that could be one of the biggest changes the Spanish monarchy has seen in years. There is also a fascinating contrast between Leonor's childhood image and the woman the public is beginning to see. The little girl who once stood beside her parents at official events is gradually disappearing from the spotlight. In her place is a young woman being prepared for a role that could eventually make her one of the most watched figures in Spain. That transition brings pressure. Every decision can be interpreted. Every mistake can become a headline. And every moment of confidence can become evidence that she is ready. So perhaps the real story isn't that Princess Leonor is changing her image. Perhaps the story is that she is finally creating one of her own. Not simply Felipe and Letizia's daughter. Not simply Spain's future queen, but Leonor. A future monarch with her own presence, her own generation watching her, and her own way of approaching the enormous responsibility ahead. And that is why her transformation may be more significant than it first appears. Because royal images can be carefully designed, but genuine maturity cannot be faked forever. Leonor is entering the stage where the public will increasingly judge her not by who her parents are, but by who she becomes. And if this quiet transformation continues, Spain may soon discover that its future queen has been preparing for that moment all along. The crown may still be in the future, but the woman who will wear it is already taking shape.